Good morning. The meeting of the Iowa Board of Regents for June 13th, 2024 will come to order. I will begin by calling roll. Regent Dunkel? Here. Regent Barker?
Here.
Regent Crow?
Here.
Regent Rouse?
Here.
Regent Lindemeyer?
Here.
Regent Kramer?
Here.
Regent Reiswick?
Here.
Regent Bates is present. We have a quorum and the meeting can proceed. Are there any items board members would like to remove from the consent agenda for a separate vote? A motion and a second are required to approve and receive items on the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Rouse, second by
I'll second.
Crow, Regent Crow. Is there any discussion? Roll call vote. Regent Reiswick?
Yes.
Regent Dunkel?
Yes.
Regent Lindemeyer?
Yes.
Regent Barker?
Yes.
Regent Rouse?
Yes.
Regent Crow?
Yes.
Regent Kramer?
Yes.
Regent Bates votes yes. The motion is approved. Am I right? Okay. This will be the final meeting for Regent Abby Crow. At this time, I'd like Abby to come forward, and I have a resolution to read and a gift to present. I'm going to sit here and read it.
Sure.
Okay. This to you. I'm going to read it here.
You can sit in my spot.
Whereas Abby Crow was appointed to the Board of Regents by Governor Reynolds for a term beginning May 1st, 2021, and is attending her final board meeting as a member June 11th through the 13th, 2024. And whereas she graduated summa cum laude from the University of Iowa on May 2023 with a degree in human physiology and a minor in biology, while also receiving a certificate in leadership. And whereas she will be entering the physician assistant program in the Carver College of Medicine at the University of Iowa starting this fall, a highly ranked and extremely competitive master's degree program that accepts 25 students per year. And whereas she served on several board committees, including serving as vice chair of the Free Speech and Student Affairs Committee, which provides oversight and policy recommendations on issues related to campus safety and security, freedom of expression, student life and development, financial aid, and career development. And whereas she provided a steady, insightful, and thoughtful voice, always representing the best interests of students at Iowa's 3 Regent universities, including prioritizing regular and open communication with student government leaders and being a strong and vocal advocate for additional funding and resources for expanded mental health support services at the 3 institutions. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Iowa Board of Regents expresses its deep gratitude to Regent Crow for her expertise and dedication and publicly acknowledges her for extraordinary service and contributions to the Board of Regents, its institutions, students, families, and all Iowans. This is for you. This is for you also. You can reference. Isn't that beautiful? So you can never forget us.
No.
Okay. Thank you. Do you want the wrappings here? The nice thing is that she's going to be still close, so we can still call on her for a hello and a question. So thank you, Abby. I now recognize, no. Okay, I turn to the right page. I would now like to recognize each institutional head to report on the recent activities at each institution. We will begin with President Wilson.
Good morning. Thank you, President Bates and members of the board, and thanks for joining us for this meeting. We've been really happy to host you, and we hope the visit's been enjoyable. I'm going to give some very brief updates on what's been happening at the University of Iowa, and I'm going to start with graduation since it's that time of the year, and give you a few updates. As you can see from the chart, we graduated over 5,000 students during multiple ceremonies. I went to 9 of them, but there were more than that since some of them were at the same time. Lots of students, lots of happy families, lots of people that are going to go out into the work world. And you can see from the stats that many of these students have pursued degrees that are really going to help the workforce, both in the state of Iowa and in the Midwest. Lots of teachers, nurses, and of course, many graduate and professional programs related to healthcare. So really excited about that. 16% of our undergraduates had multiple majors. I actually feel like the stat should be higher because it seems like every student I meet has at least 2 majors and often a certificate program and other things. So I think that's an important aspect of what we do here at Iowa. Students can pursue their interests across different colleges and across different majors in an easy way, and it allows them to really explore their interests in dynamic ways. And some of them are very interesting, like chemistry and theater arts, combinations of things you just would never expect. Interestingly, among the most popular majors at the undergraduate level were communication studies. I'm not just saying that because it's my background, finance, marketing, psychology, and English and creative writing. So a really eclectic group of majors that reflect, I think, who Iowa students are. So we're really proud of all of our graduates, and they're going to go out and become great Hawkeye alums. Here's an example of one, and we just occasionally like to pull out a student who's representative of the amazing talent that we attract and that we are graduating. You can see that Abby is Shackleton is from Princeton, Iowa, and she came to us to pursue a degree, an undergraduate degree, and then a master's degree in speech pathology. Now she's going to pursue a clinical fellowship at St. Luke's Hospital in Cedar Rapids, and that will be followed by a full-time position at St. Luke's. I love her, and by the way, speech pathology is a number 6th ranked program in the country. I love the quote that we shared with you. I was really nervous coming to college about feeling alone and being away from home, and truly the Hawkeye community picked me up. Yeah, another quote that she gave us was the following: I got involved in research right away as a first-year student, which is such a great thing about this university. I've talked with friends who went to different universities where being in research isn't even allowed until your junior or senior year. So Abby's just one example of the kind of talent we attract and the kind of talent that commits to Iowa to make the world a better place. Couple of highlights around national awards. Toward the end of every academic year, awards are often bestowed on our faculty, particularly, and also on our students. Start with just a highlight, Guggenheim Fellowships. We received 2 of them this year, 2 of our faculty. Professor Akbar and Professor Brinkley both received a Guggenheim. This is an amazingly competitive award. They're selected from an applicant pool of 3,000 people, and only about 188 receive the actual Guggenheim Award. This is an amazing opportunity for our faculty. They can travel, they can finish projects. We're really excited about the fact that we've added 2 to our 13 since 2010. And this is just one example of the kinds of awards. I want to just give a quick shout out to the Provost's office because they've been very active in setting up an office to help make sure that we're nominating faculty and that we're getting faculty into the queue, and we're helping faculty create proposals for these awards. It's an aggressive kind of approach, but it's typical of our peer institutions, and if we just sit back and hope that awards come our way, we won't get as many as we deserve. So we're being very purposeful, and the Guggenheims are a great example of that. But our students are awarded important acknowledgments and opportunities as well. Here's a great example, C.J. Peterson, who is one of our Truman Scholar recipients this year. And you can see he hails from Atlantic, Iowa. He will receive a Truman, 60 awardees across the country, 60 only, and he will be one of them. This is an award that allows him to pursue a master's degree, and he's going to pursue a master's degree in urban and regional planning. And his quote is great. "My interests are really about making sure that rural communities are livable and that people have the things that they need, including healthcare and education." CJ is a first-gen student, and a community college transfer student. So a great example of the kind of variety of and diversity of students that we attract from across the state and beyond. He earned a bachelor's degree in political science while he was living on his farm in rural Audubon County. So a pretty amazing young man, and is going to go on and do great things. We're also really excited that we found out 4 of our faculty received the American Association for Advancement of Science Award, highly competitive national award, and we're really excited that Professors Campbell, McMurray, Walrath, and Feiss joined the ranks of AAAS Fellows. You met Professor McMurray yesterday. He received a Regents Award for faculty excellence, and we've had 13 faculty named as AAAS Fellows in the last 3 years. So really competitive and very difficult to get recognized as a fellow from this association. So really excited about that. Turn my attention to research. As you know, we are constantly working on research. You heard about some great examples yesterday in cardiology. Our federal research funding for this year increased by 16.5% over last year. We're constantly working on garnering more research dollars, especially from the federal funding agencies. We secured $704 million in external funding this year. So that's an all-time high for us. Here's a great example of the kind of research that we're doing on this campus, a $17.9 million award from the federal government to study hypertension. And what I love about this project is it is a multi-site, multi-institution grant. So we have 930 patients who are enrolled in this research from multiple primary care clinics, and they'll be followed for 12 months. They're either going to be in the Approach 1 or Approach 2 or a control group. Approach 1 gives them a team of healthcare workers to work on their hypertension, and Approach 2 adds a pharmacist to the team. So the goal will be to see whether that makes a difference in terms of the long-term health and well-being of people with hypertension. And 2 faculty members that represent the diversity of this project, one from public health and one from pharmacy. So exciting opportunity, and we're proud to be part of it. We don't pander to the rankings, but when they're good, we're going to shout about them. And so just an example of this year's newly top-ranked graduate and professional programs, you can see that many of them are in the top 10, and we're listing here top 20. These are professional and graduate programs, and I'm just delighted that they represent such a variety of disciplines. It's not all healthcare. It really is across the board. And I have to say, this is just those programs that were ranked this year. So you heard that Regent Crowe is joining the PA program. That's number 2 in the country. They weren't re-ranked this year, so that's why they're not on this list. But so this isn't exclusive. It's just the recently ranked new programs. And then yesterday you heard from our VP and Dean Jameson about this amazing national study that we're pretty proud of, ranking 200 healthcare systems across the country. It's a national survey by a company called Monagle, and they looked at issues like trust and humanizing. Humanizing is understanding what matters most to people during their healthcare planning and healthcare journey. And we were thrilled that we ended up being number one out of these 200 in humanizing healthcare. And I get letters all the time from grateful patients and grateful families, and I know that our healthcare folks do too, about the amazing work that we do. Not only are we helping people get healthier, but we're doing it in a really sensitive and humanizing way. And we are also ranked number 19 for most trusted in the healthcare brands. So a great example of the work that we're doing across our healthcare operations here. And that's the end of my updates. Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions for President Wilson? Regent Barker?
Thanks for the update. I wonder, do you have a list of all of the, so you said this is the rankings that were just changed this year?
Yes, just for graduate though.
Okay.
Graduate
Yeah,
and professional.
Okay, yeah, if we could get a list of all of the graduate,
Absolutely.
that'd be great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we definitely can do that. Yeah. Any other questions?
Any other? All right. Thank
And
you.
I add my congratulations and thanks to Regent Crow for all of her work that she's done. Thank you.
Thank you, President Wilson. President Nook?
Thank you. Regent President Bates, regents and colleagues across the Iowa system of higher education, it's a pleasure to be with you and share an update on things happening at the University of Northern Iowa. This is an interesting time on all of our campuses. We've just congratulated and thanked our graduates for everything that they've done. Of course, congratulations seems obvious. They've completed this amazing goal of achieving a undergraduate or graduate degree of some kind. But I think it's also important to stop and say thank you to them because they have had a major impact on our institutions. The work that they've done, the way that the questions they've asked in the classroom, the things that they've done in our student organizations, the outreach they've done to our communities, in our local communities, have had a tremendous impact on our institutions, and they do change our culture. So we always pause during commencement to take a little time to say thank you to our graduates for what they've done in their time here. It's also a time that we're starting to welcome our next set of new students through new student orientation, both transfer students, graduate students, but especially new entering freshmen. It's always amazing to get together with that group, to see their excitement, to see their nervousness and their uneasiness about this transition. They've learned to be successful in their high schools. Now it's our opportunity to start to help them learn to become successful as college students on each of our campuses. And it's always a rewarding experience to spend some time with those students as they come into our campus. And I always encourage all of them to make a date with me for 4 years from that time, to meet me on stage at the McLeod Center to receive their degree in 4 years. And we've had more and more success at that, with now more than half of our incoming freshmen receiving their degree in a 4-year period, and nearly 10% doing so in 3 years. So they came early, those that came for 3 years, that get done in 3 years. But always exciting time to say thank you and congratulations to those graduating, but also welcome. And here's how you become successful to those new students coming to our campus. As part of that commencement and graduation, we always celebrate students who have given back to the university in very special ways. And the Lux Service Award is presented annually by the Office of the Dean of Students. And it's given to undergraduate students who have best represented the ideal of service to the university community. The honor is conferred in the spirit of keeping the light of service to others burning bright at UNI, hence the name Lux, which comes from our motto and our seal. I'd like to introduce each of these 3 students to you. One of them you know very, very well, but Emily Klauser, choral music education major, now graduate from Waukee, Iowa. She's a 4th generation UNI graduate. But she was very involved in the American Choral Directors Association on our campus, as well as an accompanist for the UNI Varsity Men's Glee Club. The accompanist is kind of a special position. This is an all-male organization except for the accompanist, and they really embrace the accompanist, make her part of the organization, and Emily has really enjoyed that opportunity. In fact, is just getting back from Italy, traveling with the Varsity Men's Glee Club on their trip to Europe. One of the things that she was also involved in is the UNI Guild of Carillonneurs. This is a group of students who learn to play and then do performances on the carillon in the middle of our campus. It's until very recently we didn't have a practice instrument, so they were practicing live music that everybody in our community could hear from the carillon. We have since, about a year ago, had the installation of a practice carillon. Emily was actually very involved in this, in that she was the lead of the carillonneurs at that time and helped with what that would look like and where it would be located and things of that sort. But she was also very involved in helping document the return of the bells. Just over 2 years ago, we had the bells of the carillon taken out and refurbished. We had 9 new bells cast for the carillon. She traveled to Cincinnati, where the new bells were being cast and furbished, and where the old bells were being refurbished, and documented all of that, and then documented for the students and for our university the arrival of the bells on campus just a year ago, and helped celebrate that. So it's a very special time for her to have the bells come back and then be one of the very first people to play the quote-unquote new carillon, because of being refurbished and the new bells that were in there, and the amount of new music they could play because they had a larger range in the carillon. So Emily has just been a real gatherer on our campus. She's been a true leader at the University of Northern Iowa. Diamond Roundtree, who is on the right in this image, is a digital production major from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And she has lived by something that her father told her when she was young. Every time she took on a new project, her father would always say, "Leave it better than you found it." And she's embraced that at our university as well. She served as a resident assistant, helping students on our campus get comfortable with all aspects of life, but especially living within our university apartments and units. She was an orientation leader, helping new students transition to our campus and learn what it takes to be successful at the University of Northern Iowa. She was a CAT Crew member, and CAT Crew helps new students, once they're on campus, manage that transition, continue to manage that transition. She was a Jumpstart Pathfinder. Jumpstart is for underserved, underrepresented, low-income students come to our campus and have been part of an Upward Bound program or some other transition program. And Pathfinders help them in a week before classes, kind of get used to being on campus, find where services are located on our campus, and start to make that transition ahead of time so that they are up to speed and ready to go and have an enhanced opportunity to be successful on our campus. She's also been a writer for the Northern Iowan, our student newspaper, and she created a multicultural student magazine called Prolific on our campus. It's clear that everything that she has done really has helped her leave it better than she found it. She really has helped, especially students of color, but all of our students integrate into our campus and find their voice on our campus as well. So Diamond, thank you for leaving it better than you found it. And our third student that received a Lux Award was Noah Hackbart. He was a political communication graduate from Ankeny, Iowa, and I know many of you know him from his work on the Northern Iowa Student Government. He's been a senator, but he's also been our director of government relations and led numerous groups over the last couple of years to the state legislature to talk with legislators, people in the governor's office, the governor, about things that were important to them as students at the University of Northern Iowa, and help our students, as importantly, help our students learn to engage in public civic engagement. How do you talk to a legislator? Who is your legislator? How do you find out? How do you make appointments? How do you put together what you want to say and make a great presentation? And oftentimes then showing up in the gallery as important votes were about to take place, wearing their purple and leaning out over the edge of the gallery so that all the legislators knew that you and I was there supporting and listening to what they had to say. Noah's also served as UNI's student liaison to the Cedar Falls City Council. I really appreciate the fact that our City Council in Cedar Falls has created this position as a student liaison. He sits on the dais with the City Council. He's turned to often by the mayor and by other members of the council to hear directly from him about the possible impacts that UNI, and especially on students across the campus. So just a really important role, and he's done a great job at that. He served last summer as an intern in Senator Chuck Grassley's office and was part of the tour guides that my family and I had as we took a tour of the Capitol. It was fun to interact with Noah in that regard. And now he's serving as the district representative for Ashley Hinson. So as you can see, 3 outstanding examples of service and commitment to making the place, UNI, a better place, but also the community in which we are located. Research at the University of Northern Iowa is an important part of who we are as well. And last meeting, you heard from President Wintersteen about an EPSCoR grant on biomanufacturing. Cargill is the easy way to refer to it. And we have several people working in that. This Cargill EPSCoR grant on biomanufacturing involves all 3 of our universities, as well as Central College and Dordt University. Our part in it, there's 3 pieces of this. We're involved in all of them, but Professor Tim Kidd, who you see here, is a professor of physics. Our portion is a $2.5 million grant, and it works on fibers for flexible and rigid materials using nanocellulose. Cellulose is a plant-based fiber, and probably the way that we're most used to seeing it as a material is in paper. Paper is just stacks of cellulose. The other place is in cotton fabrics. That's also a cellulosic material. But he's working with nanocellulose and making, in particular, materials that are extremely hard, extremely rigid. But it can also be made into extremely flexible, strong and flexible materials. But making those and creating nanocellulose is extremely expensive. A lot of what he's working on is working to drive down that manufacturing cost of nanocellulose to make those materials and improve their marketability by bringing their price structure down. Ali Tabai and Alexander Polasek. Ali is is an associate professor in our physics department. Alexander's a professor of computer science, are working on proteins for diagnostic and therapeutics as part of that grant as well. But we also have a couple of NSF grants. One that Andrew Stollenwerk, a professor in physics, is working with a professor from Texas Tech University on the electrical and optical properties of materials, in particular adding carbon to these materials and then testing to see what their optical and electrical properties are for uses in computing. And then Professors Kidd and Pavel Lukashev, as well as Ali Tabai and Department Chair Paul Shand, all from the physics department, are working with Lynn Zhao from Iowa State University on materials that are vital to quantum information and storage. Again, more material science work. And finally, there's a Department of Energy grant that Professors Kidd, Stollenwerk, Lukashev, and Shand are working on with 2D materials and quantum computing. I'm bringing this up because this fall we will be opening the new program in material science engineering on our campus. It's the first engineering program on our campus. As you can see, we have a pretty rich research program already, and sharing that knowledge with our students and with people across the state that are involved in all aspects of material science is an important part of what we're doing and we're planning as we stand this program up. One of the important pieces of this is because we are primarily an undergraduate institution and we don't have a graduate program in physics, is the opportunity for our undergraduates to get involved in this research immediately as freshmen, as President Wilson pointed out here at the University of Iowa. At the University of Northern Iowa, that's also true, to engage immediately in the practice of science, right? As I was growing up, I often thought that science was something you know. I quickly learned that science isn't something you know, it's something you do. You do have to know some science, but ultimately, science really is a verb. It's an activity. It isn't just something you know. And it's important that students learn that. And the only way to truly learn it is to engage in that process. And this gives them lots of opportunities to do exactly that. As you all are very aware we have one other new program that we're launching this fall as well, and that's our nursing program. We have, at this point, admitted 30 students into candidacy for that program. They'll start this fall. We expect to admit another 48 to 50 for the spring cohort, and hope to continue to increase the number of students in that as we see how successful they are and how this program continues to develop. We are in the final phases and really wrapping up the phase 1 renovation. It'll be complete by the first part of August, and that is the area that these first-year students will be taking their education. We've renovated the top floor of what one time was the women's gym. It's now our innovative teaching and technology center. It really is a unique floor to go on to, learning space. It is fully equipped with all the modern equipment for nursing education. The new beds are in, all the mannequins are in place, and these are really robotic mannequins. They're very, very lifelike. They groan, they moan, they let you know they're in pain. What they think of as pain, but it's just a really great simulation lab for these students. We're in the process already of phase 2 renovations, which is on one of the first floors, and that's where they'll have their second year of education, and we're also in the process of phase 3. Phase 2 should be finished in time for the students to move into that second year, and phase 3 then in time for them to move in for their third year. So it's going very, very well. We hope to have the phase 3 complete by the fall of 2025. First of all, thank you for considering Megan Franklin, our new AD, and the approval of her position at the University of Northern Iowa. I know you'll vote on it formally here in a little bit, but it's a pleasure to welcome Megan to the university. Most recently, she was the Senior Women's Athletic Associate at Drake University. She's been at Drake, was at Drake for about 12 years, and she's served various roles, including serving a stint as their interim athletic director. Before that, she was at Virginia Tech University. Originally, she was hired there to work with academics in the athletics program, the student experience. After the fatal shooting at Virginia Tech in 2008, she was asked by the university to be one of the 2 people that worked directly with the victims of that shooting, those that were injured and those that were close to students who were killed, and their family members. And it was a tremendous experience for her, a tremendously impactful experience for her to be able to work with those students until all of them had graduated. And then she worked with assessment and accreditation for the university, across the entire university. At the University of Northern Iowa, she's already become very, very active. Even before her first day, we had the Panther Caravan going out to 4 different communities around the state, and she was on those caravans talking to the people, getting to know how UNI athletics work, getting to know the coaches, getting to know our fan base, getting to know alums, and just really starting to engage our community. She's been around our community, meeting with media, meeting with donors, meeting with investors, and really helping set a tone for the next era of UNI athletics. She's very excited about the opportunity to engage the community in UNI and to engage UNI in the community, bringing more people into the Dome for all of the events that happen there, not just UNI football and other athletic events, but the events that go beyond athletics at UNI, and as well fill the McLeod Center for our men's and women's basketball games, our volleyball games, and our wrestling meets as well. It's exciting to have Megan join our team, and she's doing a great job in the start already. And thank you for the opportunity to present to you, and I want to stop and just say thank you, Abby, for what you've done in representing our students and our faculty and staff. As you've said, and I've heard you say oftentimes when you first took this job, your colleagues were very clear that you weren't a student regent, you were a regent. And it's easy to look at the student regent and say thank you for representing our students, but you really have represented well our entire university organization, from their students to our employees, and we greatly appreciate the time and the leadership that you've given to our colleagues and to our students and by that, to our entire state. So thank you very much. To the rest of the Regents, thank you for what you've done, for your leadership and your commitment to the employees and the students of our universities and to the entire state of Iowa. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments? Thank you, President Nook.
Thank you.
Very well done. Okay, I'd like to recognize President Wintersteen.
Good morning, everyone. Good to be here for an update about Iowa State University. And we'll just begin with commencement. So I think this photo of me with my mouth open, broader than anyone could imagine is possible, welcoming Clayton Mitchell, who was our first Psi that got to wear his Psi feet and legs across the stage, is a photo certainly for Cyclones everywhere, was really widely well received. And so this is a new tradition at Iowa State for Psis to get to wear their feet and legs across the stage. I don't know if you can tell the momentum there, but when Clayton finally got to me, he almost knocked me over, which would have been another great photo. But it is fun. Commencement's a great time at Iowa State University, as it is at all of our Regent universities. And this was again, another year, because of the large number of students, we needed to have 3 undergraduate ceremonies on Saturday. It's a great way to do it. Everybody gets to come. We don't have to worry about seating in Hilton Coliseum, and we were so pleased that President Pro Tem Rouse could be there. Regent Kramer, Regent Dunkel were able to join us for one of our ceremonies, of the 5 ceremonies that we have at Iowa State. We always like it when a Regent member can join us for one of our commencement ceremonies. So thank you for doing that. Again, it's a great time of year. Everybody's happy for commencement. And you all...
Sorry, President Wintersteen, if I can make a quick comment about that picture. One thing is that this is the first, a lot of his friends realize that he's Psi, because he's been keeping his secret. So he was very happy to show the crowd that he was Psi. But the other is that across all of Cyclone Nation, I've been getting calls, and they say, "Robert, is that you in that picture?" Yes, that's my shoe right behind Psi there. So that's what I do.
So that's the joy of commencement, right? That people are so engaged and have so much fun on these wonderful days when we get to celebrate the success of our students. And it's not just that day, right? Because they go on to their lives and their careers, and the placement rate for our students by the time that we look at, 6 months after graduation rate, 95.5% of our students are in jobs, they're employed, and that's across all the majors at Iowa State University. So we're so proud of our students, so proud of their success. We're proud of our faculty and staff at the university that help our students grow and learn and be prepared for their lives and their success in their careers. So a lot of fun at commencement. We want to take a moment and recognize Provost Wickert for the 12 years of leadership that he provided at Iowa State University, and certainly he'll continue to provide in his role, as he will be in the Department of Mechanical Engineering. He'll be working in the Student Innovation Center. He'll be working with our students and with his colleagues across the university. 12 years as provost is almost an unparalleled record across the nation. I could go on, and we've done that in terms of celebrating his many accomplishments. We've done that on campus. But I want to just turn around and look at the provost. He'll be very upset with me, so he'll be frowning when I turn around and look at him. But let's give him a round of applause. And he wasn't frowning, so that's a good sign. He'll probably have something to say later, though. So we want to also welcome our new provost, Jason Keith. He'll start on August 1st. Jason has served the past 10 years as Dean of the College of Engineering at Mississippi State University. Prior to that, he was director of the University School of Chemical Engineering. He has a bachelor's and a PhD in chemical engineering. We're very excited to have him join us. He's already really started working. I don't know if Mississippi State University knows that, but he's very excited to be with us, and so we're doing a good job of getting him onboarded. And so another engineer in the provost office. So we have a good track record with engineers in that role. Well, navigating FAFSA challenges. What a time that we've all had in dealing with FAFSA. And certainly our parents and our students especially have been challenged with this issue. So as the federal government said that they were going to improve FAFSA, make it easier, make it better, they certainly weren't successful with that goal. And so the chaos that was caused was tremendous. But I'm proud to share that our financial aid and enrollment management teams have been able to overcome that and accomplish great things for our students. So to give you some context, in a typical year, incoming and first-year students would receive their financial aid offers in early February. This year, because of the delays, financial aid officers weren't ready until April 25th. Our financial aid and admission teams were all hands on deck, stuffing envelopes to send out 16,000 financial aid officers, and the staff pulled together to get this done in about 3 hours. You can see a photo of the team working there. We do send the offers via email, but students and families have long requested that we also send it to them via traditional mail as well. I really want to recognize this team. As a result of this delays, we extended the One App Scholarship application deadline to April 11th. And typically the scholarship selection process takes about 4 weeks to complete. But our team expedited the process to just 11 days. So I want to congratulate the whole team, the Associate Vice President for Enrollment Management, Laura Doring, the Director of Student Financial Aid, Chad Olson, Director of Admission, Catherine Johnson-Susky. Catherine Johnson-Susky is really an incredible, I'd say, ball of fire. Just yesterday, the provost shared with me an email that we received from a happy family that was visiting campus during this orientation time, and they went on and on about how we welcome students, how we help them with all of the financial aid forms, just everything we do to make sure that all their questions were answered. The extraordinary efforts of the team that manages all the intricate details, it's just amazing. One day I sent a note to Chad Olson and I said, I continue to get messages from the Secretary of Education about everything's going to work out. Everything is going to be okay. And the Secretary wrote to tell me that things were happening. We were going to start to get the forms. And Chad wrote back and said, yes, yesterday we got 4 forms from the federal government. So it really was a mess and created tremendous problems. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that next year it will be better, but we're going to be prepared for the worst. I also want to recognize the critically important work in these offices in educating our students about the cost of their college education and how to make smart financial decisions in paying for college. Last year, 44% of Iowa State students graduated with 0 debt, and that's up more than 15% since 2008. And I want to share just a few key examples about how we're being able to make this progress. We require students to meet one-on-one with a financial success coach before we certify their private loans. And as a result of this, students make different decisions. They often decide not to take out as much loan as they were originally planning to do so. Or they might plan to apply for more scholarships than they thought they originally needed. Or they might decide to take on a student job. It really changes what their plan was to pay for their college education. and they end up borrowing less. And that's a smart financial decision for each of these students. We're also prioritizing private fundraising for more scholarships. So last year, $23.5 million in donor-funded scholarships were awarded to 7,409 Iowa State students, and that's an 8% increase in dollars awarded and a 4% increase in the number of students receiving support over the prior year. I talk to a lot of donors, and they often ask me what my priority is as president for their money. And I always start by talking about financial aid for our students, about scholarships for our students, because the cost of a college education continues to rise. Now, we have lots of priorities on campus, and it's always about what the donor is interested in funding. But I always talk about the need for student support and about the high cost of a college education. Well, yesterday you heard about the great programs we have to help reduce the cost of textbooks, and that has truly made a difference over the years. So that's another way that we're helping students save money. Well, we continue to innovate our degree programs to attract new students and to meet workforce demands, and we appreciate how the Board of Regents has approved new degrees. And so just a little bit about that: a bachelor's degree program in sports media and communication, and an online master's degree in digital health. Sports media is a booming industry with nearly 96,000 new jobs expected in 2031. And this is a result of the highly competitive college and professional sports media rights market, fueled by expanding network, cable, social media, and streaming services. You see this yourself, right? The new degree program aligns with ISU's athletic strengths in the Big 12 Conference, and it'll leverage hands-on and experiential learning opportunities through Cyclones TV and the Student Innovation Center. The online master's degree in digital health addresses workforce needs at the intersection of healthcare, technology, and data analytics. Careers in health information technologies and health management analysts are expected to grow as much as 17% by 2031. Iowa State's program will have a specific focus on how technology-driven interventions can really enhance health outcomes and potentially increase efficiency and reduce the need for repeat follow-up visits with providers. The unique emphasis positions our program as a pioneer in Iowa and the Midwest. Well, I want to take a moment to celebrate our College of Veterinary Medicine's new world ranking. The college is number 8 in North America and number 13 among all veterinary science programs in the world. So the world ranking is up 3 spots from last year and 16 spots from the year before. The College of Veterinary Medicine has a long legacy of excellence. We are the first public veterinary college in the nation. We're the top recipient of USDA research funding in the country. We have the only national center devoted to swine education. The veterinary diagnostic lab is the only one of its kind in Iowa with the largest caseload in the country. So we're very proud of this new ranking. Iowa State University Extension and Outreach's trusted expertise and presence in every county has been invaluable in a time of crisis. And our extension staff who live and work in these counties really have an impact when a crisis does occur. And so during this spring, with the tornadoes that have impacted so many of our rural counties, they have really been a good resource in helping in these communities. And just to give you a few examples, so just during April and May, the Iowa Concern Hotline has handled nearly 1,300 calls from families needing to access services. And this is one way that we help the state help families who need to access services during a time of crisis. Our agriculture and specialists have been helping farmers as they think about getting debris removed from fields and pastures. And we're working with the Iowa Department of Health and Human Services to implement a crisis counseling program grant that will help, again, with on-the-ground support for families, again, dealing with the terrible problems that have ensued as a result of the bad weather and tornadoes. So Extension present in these counties during the terrible weather and the resulting problems that have been in place. So that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments for President Wintersteen? Regent Barker?
Well, congratulations on the ranking for the College of Veterinary Medicine. That's great.
Great.
Who gave that ranking, and do they rank only these kinds of programs or others?
It's the QS program, and they rank a number of programs. And we could certainly provide you more information about that, Regent Barker, but they rank a whole set of programs. Yeah. Great.
Thank you, President
Thank you.
Wintersteen. Yeah. Thank you to all the institutional heads for your presentations. I think we'll take a 15-minute break, and hopefully when we come back, we can finish up our agenda.
Thank you very much.
These guys are great. They just want to, yep. Summer's going well?
Yeah, I'm not doing much lately, but summer internship too, so then I'll be busy.
And where's the internship happening?
Home is my
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm excited. I'm excited. Yeah.
We're going to take about a 15-minute break, so you've got a little time.
I know, man, thank goodness. I hope I don't black out. I've tried to memorize chunks of it, but then, I don't know, maybe once the microphone gets in my face, I'll black out a little bit. But
These people are all extremely supportive.
I think we'll go ahead and proceed with our meeting. I now recognize Brad Berg from the Board of Regents office, who will make remarks on tuition and fees and introduce the student government representatives.
Thank you, President Bates. Before the board today is the second and final reading of the proposed tuition, mandatory fees, and the common and university specific fees for the 2024-25 academic year. The proposed based undergraduate resident tuition rates include 3% increases for the University of Iowa and for Iowa State University, and a 2% increase for the University of Northern Iowa. The docket also includes varying rate proposals to other student categories such as non-residents, graduate and professional students, and differential rates for certain higher cost programs. The board's also asked to approve the allocation of the student activities, student services fees, and the building fees as recommended by the student fee committees. And I want to first thank the student leaders for coming to comment today on the proposed rates. And with that, if we're okay, I'd like to introduce Brenda Ramirez, Vice President from the University of Iowa Undergraduate Student Government. Brenda?
Hello, thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you all so much for having us today. I would like to start off by thanking the board for giving us student leaders the opportunity to share our thoughts on the new tuition raise for this year. As student body vice president, I've had the chance to speak with many students about how tuition costs have affected their lives, and I would like to share two stories with you today. Emma Seward grew up in Waverly, Iowa, and most recently graduated from the university with a degree in political science and sustainability, and she's looking forward to entering law school next fall. However, Emma's college experience was not what she had envisioned. Under normal circumstances, she would have graduated next year with all of her friends. Instead, Emma had to graduate this year because the cost of attendance became an unbearable burden for her. You see, Emma didn't receive any financial scholarships or assistance for her education, so she had to rely solely on student loans to cover tuition, housing, and basic needs. Despite working every single year of her college career, Emma couldn't manage a full-time job as a full-time student. So instead, she dealt with the growing loan payments every year. But her story isn't unique. Hundreds of other students face the same tough decisions every year. As a first-generation student myself, I've gotten the opportunity to meet a lot of students who are first-generation as well. So Jasmine was born and raised in Des Moines, Iowa. Neither of her parents attended college, so navigating higher education and finances have been a learning curve for both of them. From understanding the admissions process to managing finances, every step has been hard. She's worked many part-time jobs throughout her college education to help cover her expenses, but it has never been fully enough to offset the cost. Scholarships and financial aid have helped her, but the rising tuition has still been a constant source of stress. It began to be such a burden that she had to take a semester off to be able to save money and return to school. She knew taking a semester off would jeopardize her goals, but it appeared to be her only choice. The financial burden of tuition is a significant challenge, not just for Jasmine, but for thousands of the first-generation students who come to the University of Iowa as they try to break the cycle of limited educational opportunities for their families. While we acknowledge the necessity of tuition increases to maintain the quality and education and facilities, we also urge the board to consider the significant impacts that increasing tuition every year has on students like Emma and Jasmine. We would like to work with the board to explore and implement additional support measures to offset the financial burden of students. Supporting higher education is one of the best ways to keep students engaged and invested in their future. By finding ways to alleviate the financial burden on students, we can assure that more students complete their education without the stress and pressure of overwhelming debt. As students, we are foundational to the funding of the university's operations, and we ask that the investment in our student services meet that of the increased investment we have made into our education. Overall, we hope our call for collaboration between the state legislature, Board of Regents, and Regent institutions to lower the burden of tuition costs on students is heard and supported with increased state allocations. We greatly appreciate the board's time and energy for all the work that you do for our Regent universities. Thank you for your time today, and we look forward to collaborating with you all in the future.
Thank you, Brenda. Our next presenter is Elizabeth Montalvo, who's the president of UNI's undergraduate student government. Elizabeth?
Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you to the board. On behalf of the student body, I would like to extend gratitude to the board for allowing us as student leaders to speak on the proposed tuition and rates for the upcoming fiscal year. We recognize that this discussion regarding tuition and fees is one that is complex and needs collaboration between the board, the legislator, and students. We also understand that in this discussion and decision-making process, there are multiple perspectives involved. So thank you once again for allowing us to give you the much-needed student perspective. Since beginning my undergraduate career in 2021, tuition and fees have increased by an estimated of $784 if we include the proposed rates of the 2024-2025 fiscal year. This increased amount equals to the average cost of textbooks per year at the University of Northern Iowa, which amounts to $800. This increase is an additional long-term burden to students for a short-term solution. As a fellow Iowan, it has always been my dream to stay and give back to the community that has given so much to me. But I am afraid that if the increase in tuition continues, this is something that I, along with my peers, may not be able to do. Potentially, I will have to move to a different state to be able to relieve myself of debt at a faster rate. This could further negatively impact the state with employment shortages. For example, one that hits close to the University of Northern Iowa is teacher shortages. It is worth noting that although around half of Iowa students graduate with zero debt, this does not mean that Iowa cannot partake in a bigger solution to keep higher education accessible for all. With the potential looming enrollment, now is the time to retain students alongside attracting them to attend our 3 Regent universities. Now is the time to think bigger and to potentially turn to business and industry and to create scholarship opportunities that can both attract and retain our students in Iowa. So I encourage you all to support scholarship opportunities that are accessible to students and call upon university leadership to support scholarship opportunities as well. I recognize the decision does not come easy and is vital to maintaining quality of education our 3 universities proudly serve. But the Northern Iowa student government is willing to continuously work and collaborate with the state to ensure there is an increase in support for our students. As a first-generation student, I see the value in higher education, and I have cherished my time at the University of Northern Iowa. I know that there I am more than just a number, and I know that faculty alongside staff work tirelessly to make sure that we as students succeed. And if you ask any other student at the University of Northern Iowa, I guarantee you that they have the same experience. Once again, I would like to thank you for allowing me to giving me the platform to be able to speak on behalf of the students at the University of Northern Iowa. So thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Next, we'll hear from Ren Bowman, the president of the Iowa State University Graduate and Professional Student Senate. Ren?
First, I want to echo thanks for you all for listening to us. It makes me proud as a twice-over Iowa State University graduate and now a graduate student again, and also an Iowa taxpayer of 10 years to know that the Board of Regents takes student opinions and concerns into consideration and that you're all here listening to us. The realities of inflation are affecting us all over Iowa. People are cutting back on expenses and are faced with difficult budget decisions. It's not lost on the Iowa State GPSS that the Board of Regents is faced with these same difficult decisions. As goods and services become more expensive, we have to find money to cover those costs. The cost of building maintenance, machines, and other equipment that funds my research, the cost of living expenses for our faculty and staff, cost of living increases are all rising, and that puts pressure on the general Regent University budget. However, looking to students who are also struggling under the weight of inflation cannot continue to be the solution. Over the past 25 years, the cost of tuition at Iowa State University for an Iowa resident graduate student has doubled. Accounting for inflation, so real buying power, in 2023, tuition has gone from a value of $5,700 to $10,500. For non-residents, the cost has risen about 50% in the same time. Over that same period, in my lifetime, the Regent University general education funding has changed from being comprised 63% by state appropriations and 30% by tuition to, as of last year, being 63% from student pockets. The proposed tuition raises were given in context of other peer institutions to show that these costs are not exorbitant or out of line. And I appreciate the care that the board has given into justifying those costs and to making sure that they're reasonable and caring as much as possible for students. However, we do feel that that might not be the best way to frame the issue. As we look at lowering enrollment over the next several years, projected across the entire nation, it's important to consider what makes us competitive. Iowa State University is the first land-grant institution. We invented the computer and the Rice Krispie treat. Our professors are on the cutting edge of technology and innovation, but none of that matters if our students can't afford to study here, and then those innovations end with us. To remain competitive, we have to consider the advantages of having lower tuition than our peer institutions and how that might help us retain faculty from graduate students at Iowa State and other Regent institutions. For graduate students, at least, this tuition increase accounts for money that would be otherwise going directly back into the Iowa economy while they're students. This is money for rent and utilities, shopping, childcare, groceries, and other social activities. Those same graduate students often also have spouses, many of whom also enter the Iowa workforce during that time. The rising costs of operating one of our Regent universities is a problem that requires a solution, and it's not an easy solution. We so admire the Board of Regents for navigating these difficult budget decisions. The ISU GPSS asks that you consider a tuition freeze, as difficult of a decision as it might be. In the future, we need to look to the Iowa State government to raise appropriations, and I'm so proud to hear that you're willing to work with us to help advocate for that increase in appropriations. However, budget decisions to help things move forward this year will impact enrollment next year. They will impact student decisions. If we don't stop asking students to shoulder these costs, we'll just be continuing to kick our economic difficulties down the road at the expense of the students we serve. Thank you again so much for thinking of us and asking for our input.
Thank you, Ren. And lastly, our last presenter is Quinn Margaret, Vice President from Iowa State University's Undergraduate Student Government. Quinn?
Thank you. And good morning to members of the board. As mentioned, my name is Quinn Margaret. I have the pleasure of serving as Student Body Vice President at Iowa State University. On behalf of Student Body President Hirsch, on behalf of our student government and our student body, I'd like to thank you all, members of the board, for the continued opportunity to collaborate with you. As you know, Iowa State University aspires to be the most student-centric leading research university. We do this by providing a top-notch education at an affordable cost, which in turn attracts world-class students to our university. Given how central affordability is to this mission, we, rightfully take tuition increases very seriously. Even under the current tuition rates, many students are forced to accrue debilitating levels of debt just to obtain their degree. According to Iowa State University's Student Employment Office, the average on-campus job, including undergraduate research positions, pays $12.90 an hour. To pay for tuition, on-campus housing, and a meal plan, an in-state undergraduate student would have to work 43 hours at one of these jobs on top of their full-time coursework just to break even. When you're looking at undergraduate, out-of-state, or international students, that number increases to almost 80 hours per week. I'm all in favor of on-campus employment, and I'm a big proponent of working through college, but these jobs simply weren't meant to pay for the soaring education cost in Iowa. In fact, many of these jobs, in fact, all on-campus jobs, limit us to 20 hours per week. Many students therefore take on significant levels of debt that will follow them for years, greatly reducing their future employment opportunities. With these struggles in mind, our student government's leadership team took a deep dive into the board's mandatory tuition and fees report. We grappled with it for a long time because none of us on that team ever want to see increases to the tuition our students are paying. However, considering the General Assembly's flat funding of our Regent budgets for next fiscal year, we commend the board for helping keep Iowa State University's average tuition increase below the rate of inflation. Simply put, we feel the board made the best of a less than ideal situation, and we thank you for that. But despite these efforts, the Iowa legislature's flat funding of Regent University appropriations speaks to a broader concern. As it's already been alluded to, as recently as 2001, nearly 2/3 of Regent general funding for Regent universities was appropriated from the state, with only 1/3 coming from student tuition. Now those proportions have flipped, with students carrying 2/3 of the burden for their education. The increase our Regent universities were denied this year would have helped our institutions maintain a more affordable tuition level, increase retention through competitive pay, and expand our academic programs. Together, our 3 Regent universities are crucial to building a strong and well-equipped workforce in Iowa. Iowa's Regent institutions attract world-class students to the state, many of whom become valued members of our economy after graduation. Investment in our Regent universities is an investment in Iowa's future, but somehow it feels that's getting lost in translation. So the question we ought to be asking ourselves is, how can we more effectively convey the value of higher education to the state legislature? Our student government's team of legislative ambassadors, led by newly confirmed Director Brandt, are eager and ready to work alongside the Board of Regents to creatively rethink how we advocate for our institutions at the state level. There ought to be more we can do, and there ought to be better ways to convey our institutions' value to the General Assembly. That's the only way Iowa Regents universities can continue to function at their full potential, and it's the only way that Iowa State University can continue to uphold our mantra of student-centered innovation. Thank you.
Thank you, Quinn and President Bates. That concludes our remarks today, and we'd be happy to respond to any questions you may have.
All right. First of all, thank you to all of you for your presentation. Are there any questions or comments from my Regent friends? Jim? Regent Lindemeyer?
I just want to underscore the importance of your voices, and you made a very cogent point about the flip in the trajectory on university reliance on tuition. I know that the last thing that university leadership wants to do and the Regents wants to do is raise tuition. And that flip in the trajectory of reliance is a reflection of the appropriations and the priorities that go on at the state level. And I think the only thing that affects priorities are voices. So don't stop telling your story. Thank you.
Regent Barker?
I just have a question. You were talking about the real tuition increases after inflation. What years were you using again?
Looking at the 1999 tuition to the
1998.
2022,
Okay.
2023.
Right,
Yes.
right. Because in recent years, as you were pointing out, tuition
Yes.
increases have been less than the rate of inflation.
Yes, the current board has worked very hard to take care of students that way, and I very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Regent Crowe?
I just want to thank our student leaders for coming and speaking today. It's a really brave thing that you do, and I know you speak on behalf of the students you represent, and I want to thank you on behalf of them.
Thank you again. Regent Lindemeyer said it the best, so thank you. Keep your voices out there. So at this time, a motion and a second are required to approve the following. The proposed tuition and mandatory fees for the 2024-2025 academic year, as outlined in the agenda item, effective with the fall 2024 session. B, the allocation of the Regent University's mandatory student fees for the 2024-25 academic year, as outlined in the agenda item. C, the proposed common and university and program-specific fees for the 2024-25 academic year as outlined in the agenda item. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Regent Rouse. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Regent Ryswick. Is there any discussion? We'll go ahead with a roll call vote. Oh, excuse me,
Just one-
Regent.
Yeah, that's Regent Kramer. One
Kramer.
comment. I don't know what's been done in the past, but do you kind of put out a statement as president if we approve this, that does kind of explain, why we did it, and we talked about that with the students?
As I'm new, I have not done that, but I will talk to my... I think that's a good idea. Okay. Any other questions or discussions? Okay. I'll take a roll call vote. Regent Barker?
Yes.
Regent Lindemeyer,
Yes.
Regent Kramer,
Yes.
Regent Crow,
Yes.
Regent Reiswick,
Yes.
Regent Dunkel,
Yes.
Regent Rouse,
Yes.
Regent Bates votes yes. The motion is approved. So we're now moving to consideration of compensation for institutional heads and executive director. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I would- Yes.
This is consideration of personnel action for institutional heads and executive director compensation. For Executive Director Braun, establish a new deferred compensation plan commencing on July 1st, 2024, and terminating on June 30th, 2026, with annual contributions of $155,000. And two, establish a new employment agreement for a term commencing July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2029, with 3 one-year options to renew. For President Wilson, authorize a $60,000 increase to her annual base salary effective July 1st, 2024. For President Wintersteen, authorize a $60,000 increase to her annual base salary effective July 1st, 2024. For President Nook, authorize a $25,000 increase to his annual base salary effective July 1st, 2024. And exercise the option to renew his employment agreement through June 30th, 2027, and amend the 2018 Deferred Compensation Plan to extend the term through June 30th, 2027, and include the following additional contributions: $100,000 annually during the period commencing July 1st, 2025, and terminating June 30th, 2027.
Thank you, Regent Barker. Regent Barker has made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Regent Crow seconds. Is there any discussion? We'll take a roll call vote. Regent Barker,
Yes.
Regent Lindemeyer,
Yes.
Regent Kramer,
Yes.
Regent Crow,
Yes.
Regent Reiswick,
Yes.
Regent Dunkel,
Yes.
Regent Rouse,
Yes.
Regent Bates votes yes. The motion is approved. Thank you. At this time, we'll get ready for, are we ready for the, okay, university presentation. So I would like to welcome, President Wilson, who will introduce the presenter.
I'm delighted to introduce today Dr. Robert Cargill. I think you're in for a real treat. Dr. Cargill is the Roger A. Hornsby Associate Professor in Classics at the University of Iowa and editor of Bible and Archaeology. He teaches biblical studies, Second Temple Judaism, archaeology, and ancient languages, including Biblical Hebrew and Greek. He's published several books, including the very well-known The Cities That Built the Bible. What's really incredible about Bob is that he is also a public scholar. So he takes his work into the public sphere and particularly helps people understand the role of the humanities in much of what we do. He's a specialist in public scholarship, so he's regularly featured on CNN, History, and Discovery, where he contributes and consults on shows such as CNN's Finding Jesus and Jerusalem, City of Faith and Fury, the History Channel's Bible Secrets Revealed, Jesus, His Life, etc. And most recently, Netflix series called Mysteries of the Faith. He's a regular contributor on History's Greatest Mysteries with Lawrence Fishburne, and he will soon appear in a new Fox Nation documentary series about the life of Jesus, tentatively titled Crown of Thorns. He's participated in archaeological excavations across Israel, and he frequently brings students with him, so I think he may talk a little bit about that as well. So thank you, Professor Cargill. We're glad you're here.
Thank you, President. Thank you, President Wilson. I appreciate the invitation to speak here with you today, and thank you, Provost Kriegel, again, for inviting me to speak. Board of Regents, thank you for having me here today, and I want to speak just for a little bit about a project that I've been involved in addition to my research and to my teaching, called Bible and Archaeology. And I want to present it as a potential new model for humanities education at the University of Iowa. As President Wilson mentioned, I'm the Roger A. Hornsby Professor in the Classics, and I teach Biblical Studies and Jewish Studies here at the University of Iowa. As of right now, I am the only tenure-track Biblical Studies professor at the University of Iowa. So as you'll note, I do a lot of this, I do a lot of heavy lifting here at the University of Iowa. The courses that you see in white are a lot of my general education and courses that I teach, basically to teach people about the history of not just ancient Israel, but of archaeology, biblical studies, things like that. You'll notice towards the top my GE courses, a lot of these are about biblical studies, Hebrew Bible. We have hired recently a visiting professor who's helping us to teach Intro to New Testament, things like that. One of the courses I'm most particularly proud of is my Ancient Origins of Religious Conflict course there at the very top. This is a course in which we look at religious conflicts around the world, including Israel-Palestine. And in the class, we actually look at the legitimate grievances of the Palestinians, we look at the legitimate grievances of the Israelis, and we actually have a classroom discussion about that. Then we go to other religious conflicts around the world. So we can look at Northern Ireland, we can look at all kinds of different conflicts throughout the world, India, Pakistan, things like that. So it's not just biblical studies, but it's religious conflict throughout the world. You'll see also that I teach some Hebrew Bible. Hebrew Bible wasn't being taught when I came here to Iowa, so I started teaching it for free as an overload course, and I've been doing that for 10 years now. And then at the bottom, you'll see that I teach Second Temple Judaism or Hellenistic Judaism. So these are courses that I teach for grad students. One of the things that we did to try to increase enrollments is I started using my tech skills, my video skills that I do for History Channel, things like that, and made videos to advertise these courses. And so we add these to where we list our courses, and that's helped bring students into the courses. I'm a big believer in meeting students where they are, and they're on YouTube. And so I go to YouTube and I put out these ads, and my courses started to fill up. So what do? I publish original research like other research professors. So I've published a couple of monographs, I've published articles in peer-reviewed journals. That's standard for research scholars. I also do public scholarship. Now, how I got into public scholarship is a long story that I don't have time to tell today, but through a series of events, I happened to become a personal tutor to Nicole Kidman. Now, I looked a little different back then. This was 4 kids ago, but and I intend to be self-deprecating here, but I basically was on a television show, and she asked me to, a friend of hers asked me to tutor her privately, and so I began doing that. Somebody else saw me present in that documentary, and I basically began a side career as someone doing television documentaries. And then not only did I appear in these shows, I began consulting and producing for these. So I was asked to help put them together. What questions should we ask? Who should we invite? And so I've been doing that now for 20 years. In addition to being a professor and a researcher and a teacher, I've been doing these television shows. So as President Wilson mentioned, I do shows on CNN and History Channel, and basically Christmas and Easter. If you turn on one of these networks, you'll see me on one of these shows. What happened was, based on that, I was offered a popular book deal, Cities of the Bible. which had a little bit of success, so it was translated into foreign language books, so Chinese, Japanese, places that are seeing a lot of growth, especially within Christianity and Judaism. And that led to me being named as the editor of Biblical Archaeology Review. Maybe some of you have heard of or even subscribed to Biblical Archaeology Review. This came to the attention of our former president, Bruce Harold, who said, why are we allowing our professor to make all that money for these other organizations? Why don't we try to capture some of that here at the University of Iowa? And that's when I came to the attention of our Office of Innovation here at the University of Iowa. And I was introduced to our Chief Innovation Officer, John Darcy, and our Director of Corporate Engagement, Jeff Keeter. And they began to put together a plan that essentially asks, how do we innovate and potentially market research and teaching at Iowa? Now, they've been doing this on this side of the river in the healthcare industry for some time. It's been very effective. But they wanted to ask, using me as this guinea pig, how do we innovate and potentially market research and teaching in the humanities? Can we do what we're doing in healthcare with the humanities? So essentially they're asking, can we leverage Bob's public education profile to highlight and promote the humanities at the University of Iowa? Specifically, market the university, recruit students not only to the University of Iowa, but to our major, to do biblical studies, to study the classics, to study ancient civilizations at the university, and to train students not only in those fields, but in public-facing media, to teach them how to do media, to teach them how to talk to a camera, to teach them how to edit videos, and to teach them to do scholarship as well. And, if possible, can we create new revenue streams in the process? So what we created was Bible and Archaeology, and this is a media distribution venue dedicated to the university's mission of public education. It became a marketing and recruiting tool for the university. And it also became, and this was important to Provost Kriegel's office, and specifically to Lois Geist, one of our associate provosts, we wanted to train our graduate students to do what I'm learning how to do. It can't just live and die with me. We wanted to teach our graduate students how to do this as well. So my graduate student, Jordan Jones, became the managing editor. And not only is he being trained in biblical studies in Hebrew and Aramaic and Greek and these languages in archaeology, but he's also learned how to edit videos. And you'll see his face on our Bible and Archaeology website as much as you'll see mine. So he's actually learning to do the media production side of it. So, heaven forbid, if he can't find a job in academia, he'll find a job and probably make more money doing video production. We also leveraged my existing media profile to create a YouTube channel. As I mentioned earlier, I believe in going to where the students are. So we took my existing course content that I give to students that come to the University of Iowa, and we took the stuff that we knew, that I get asked a lot, that we could repackage into public content, the kind of stuff that I put in my public books, and we started reading that to camera. I do this all the time for History Channel, I do this all the time for CNN, so why don't I do it to a camera here at the university and create YouTube videos? And so we began doing that. Then we took our website and these videos, and we took it to one of our own social marketing classes. This is Jeff Grismore's class in the School of Journalism. And this class actually used the Bible and Archaeology project as their class project. And they adopted us and they looked at our numbers. I'm not really a good designer, so they looked at our design of our project and they each looked at our project and said, here's some ideas. Here's what you ought to consider doing from a social media standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, from a design standpoint. And they provided recommendations and in course presentations. And it was an example of the humanities and of business working together, of marketing working together. We also went out and found a corporate sponsor. And this is Marshalltown, up in Marshalltown, Iowa. Many of you might not know that the most important tool in archaeology is the trowel. And the Marshalltown trowel is the Air Jordan of archaeological tools, of trowels. We don't even call it a trowel. We call it a Marshalltown. And that is made here in Iowa. So we went up to the Marshalltown factory that had just expanded, and we said, hey, do you mind being a sponsor? And we didn't even finish the sentence. They said, of course. And so this is an example of the humanities working together with local businesses here in Iowa, saying we want to promote Iowa, we want to promote the university, we want to promote the humanities, and work together. So the idea was to launch this project, to start locally. I've given over 40 lectures at the Aguda Sakim Synagogue here in Iowa City. I presented at Iowa City and Cedar Rapids churches. I present to the Rotary and Triangle clubs, local organizations, and I've done interviews with Ben Kiefer and Charity Nebbe on Iowa Public Radio. Anytime there's something happening, Israel, Palestine, religion, the U.S. politics, something like that, they'll have me in. I consider this part of my job as a public scholar at the University of Iowa. It's not just to teach in the classroom, it's to teach the people of Iowa. And then any time a television show comes out nationally, the university can then piggyback off of that and leverage that free national media to promote courses, to promote events here locally. So the university is actually using what I can do on the national media side to promote the university locally. The second idea was to create this public media distribution venue, this YouTube channel. Since we've created this YouTube channel a couple of years ago, we have since surpassed 120,000 subscribers. Most of this coming after we met with Professor Grismore's marketing class. So the advice that they gave us helped us to then create the YouTube channel in such a way that we can now bring in more subscribers and promote the course better. The monthly YouTube revenue has tripled in the last 6 months. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but YouTube will actually pay you if you have a certain number of subscribers based on the viewership of your site. And now we promote the audience engagement. We've developed a path for secondary short content. We actually take the content that we do, we take clips out of that, we repost those, and we're able to generate additional revenue. Now, based on this, our numbers have begun to really increase. Our video impressions for this year, for 2024, are already 145% of our 2023 total video impressions. We have a 63% increase over our 2023 average viewer duration. That is, some of you might not watch the entire video. So they're watching 63% more of our videos. They're sticking with our videos longer, which means we have a 153% increase of the total watch hours that we had for all of 2023, which has led to a 173% increase of total revenue over last year already. Now keep in mind, this is passive revenue. This is evergreen content, things that I'll put out there about basic biblical studies, basic biblical archaeology, and it works for all time. It's stuff that when I go to the national conference, scholars will come up and say, hey, I really appreciate that piece you put out on Noah's Ark. I really appreciate it on the Garden of Eden. I'm using that in my classroom. These are professors at other universities. Thanks for putting that out there. So this is evergreen content, but it's passive income. We also have revenue creating a Patreon site. So patrons can come in and give $3 a month, $5 a month to promote the work at Bible and Archaeology. We have exclusive engagement events where basically people can pay to come in and just ask me questions personally. They get to see that guy that they see on TV. And what I'm about to show you next, and that is we were able to create essentially master classes, create online courses, not just the courses that I teach here at the university, but repackaging and rebranding existing course content for potential public subscription and enrollment. So what I did is I took my Cities of the Bible course. I took the book that I wrote and I turned it into an online course here at the University of Iowa. I then had the Iowa Senior College invited me to come and present to the Iowa Senior College. And anytime I'm invited by a local group, especially an alumni group here at the University of Iowa, I say, of course, I'll speak to you. But we hired a media company to come and film that presentation, a series of 4 weeks of presentations. They then took, and oh, by the way, they sold out the Coralville Center for Performing Arts. So it was up on stage, and we tried to make it, with nice camera angles and lighting, and did the whole thing. And then they are going to edit that and release that in late 2024 for sale. We're going to market and advertise this for sale to the public. So this potentially creates another revenue stream leveraging existing humanities content that I'm already using in the classroom as a revenue stream for the University of Iowa. The humanities are important, if for no other reason, the fact that we are living them today. And the war in Gaza is a perfect example of this. Of course we should fund healthcare. It's tangible. It saves lives physically. We see that it saves lives. But the humanities are important too, because you cannot possibly begin to understand what's going on in Gaza unless you understand history, religion, politics, language, rhetoric, economics, strategy, psychology, philosophy. This is an age-old conflict. And unless you can understand these disciplines within the humanities, you cannot possibly understand the depth, the age-old conflict that's going on. And keep in mind, there are entire networks on cable channels dedicated to this content. Many of you watch them. One of the things that was told to me was, we would like to see more history on the History Channel, which is one of the reasons why they called me and said, hey, would you please consult on this? And you're beginning to see more actual history on the History Channel. Humanities teach us what it means to be human. They attempt to explore the reasons why our lives are important, why they're worth living and improving, and this lies at the core of the mission of the University of Iowa. In short, the humanities make being human relevant. And this Bible and Archaeology project is the public manifestation, the public face of my area of study at the University of Iowa. Thank you. And I'm happy to take your questions.
Are there any questions or comments? Regent Barker?
Well, you're the Roger Hornsby Professor of Classics. I knew Roger Hornsby very well. He taught Greek to my wife, had lunch with him regularly, and he gave great dinner parties. He was very thoughtful and very clear about what he respected and what he didn't.
Right.
And I think he would very much appreciate both your defense of the humanities and the scholarship that you bring to public presentations and as a public intellectual, the quality of the arguments that you make and and what you present. So I appreciate that very much.
Thank you so much.
Anyone? Regent Reiswick?
Yeah, this is fascinating. I didn't know we had Indiana Jones at the University of Iowa. Very, very fascinating. Do you still get out in the field and do work like archaeology?
Given the present circumstances in the region, I haven't taken students over there. I have gone over, but to film shows. But I took students in 2012 and 2013, but then conflict broke out, so we stopped taking students. I still help students go to find some of the digs that are still active. I have colleagues that are Palestinian, I have colleagues that are Israeli, I have colleagues that work on both sides of this conflict, and so just like I am here at the university, I am a strong person in the middle trying to get people and trying to encourage people to talk to one another. And so I haven't taken students over there, but I do try to go when I can. But I haven't been in the last couple of years.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is very fascinating. I definitely want to learn more about this, so you might get an email or a phone call.
Sure, no,
from me.
please.
Absolutely.
It is very interesting. And how are you navigating the income to, we don't want to muzzle the ox, but
Sure.
we also, it sounds like you are helping the university. So how, can you give a short answer of how that's all worked out?
So right now we're in our first goal was to build out the site. So we spent a couple of years, and those of you who've started businesses before or done entrepreneurial work, we're trying to build out the site. And then the next few years, which is where we are presently, we're trying to build up our subscriber base. And we just happen to be a little bit ahead of schedule, and we've begun creating small bits of revenue, this passive YouTube revenue, a little bit ahead of schedule. And so that money is just going into what is essentially an escrow account, and we're just letting it go for now while we're building up this monthly amount of passive revenue. I'm going to leave it for the folks behind me to decide what happens to that revenue and where it goes. My job is to go out and represent the university to the best of my ability, to try to be the biggest cheerleader for the University of Iowa that I can be, and to do what I can to educate, to get people to talk to one another. I consider myself a toolbox professor, and by that I mean I make a promise to every class that I teach, regardless of the subject. I promise every student, I will never tell you what to believe. I will never tell you what to believe. What I will tell you is what other people believe and how they got to those beliefs. And I use these modern conflicts as a hook, basically, to get them to say, now, how did they get to this belief? Let's see what the tenets of their faith are, and let's see where they diverged from that, and let's look over here on this side and see where they... But at the end of the day, I never tell the students what to believe. That's up to them. They get to decide what to believe. My job is to give them as much information as possible and then facilitate a discussion to create spaces where they can learn. And this is one of the things that I'm very proud of President Wilson and her administration in this past 10 months. And that is, they have encouraged us strongly to work behind the scenes to create spaces for students to engage with each other and to learn from each other.
Yeah, that's really good. And I just learned of the model that Iowa State is using with the research lab, and I don't know if Iowa does the same, but they're splitting income that comes in from patents, a third to the inventor, a third to the college, right, and a third to the foundation. But that seems like a pretty good split or format to maybe think about for you guys, because we want to encourage people like you to both increase income for yourself, but also for the university. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. For engineering and for health sciences, I can understand where there's patents to be created and then to split, and that's usually dealing with large sums of money. As far as I know, this hasn't been done at Iowa in the humanities before. So this is the first time that this is, and I'm happy to be the one that's doing it because I have some experience doing this in the media. It is my hope that that can become a model within the humanities for other professors who would like to take what they're already teaching to students and perhaps say, how else can we reach out to the greater state of Iowa and say, here, let's if we're a public educational institution, let's educate the greater public.
Any other questions or comments? Dr. Cargill, thank you so very much. I never, in my head, I have innovation and I have history, and I'm thinking those two, you think of history in the past and innovation in the future, and you've married the two. So thank you for that, and I think you probably have a few more subscribers on your channels after today.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there any other business to come before the board? Hearing none, this meeting of the Iowa Board of Regents is adjourned.